Hello, horror fans. This is your horror host Inkarnate, and boy, I cannot lie. This is one that I am not particularly enthused for. I will admit up front, quite frankly, I've never been a fan of the Final Destination movies. Like, to the point that the only two that I like, I think it has way more to do with the characters as opposed to anything plot related. Like, I remember the death scenes here and there. The one piece of credit that I will give this franchise is that, in my mind, they do have more of the creative kills. Even though I would struggle to use that word, they do have more of the creative kills in this film and in this franchise than what should be considered the standard for slasher movies. There are so many slasher movies that I see that, like, they lack that punch. They lack that anything. Like, you would think anything, if they're gonna do anything memorable, it's gonna be the kills. And a lot of slasher films, they don't even have that. So that's one thing that I will give the Final Destination franchise. But here's the thing. Whereas the Saw movies to me have always just been blood and guts, the movie, Final Destination, it's just it's the killer mousetrap movie. You know what I mean? It's just an excuse to have violence and gore and bloodshed. But, like, honestly, and speaking of slasher movies, how many times, it's similar to your random masked maniac film. How many times can you see a girl in a towel fresh out of the shower getting chased by a masked maniac and she trips over nothing? You know what I mean? It's things like that I find it just gets so repetitive. And with the Final Destination movies, like, how many times can you see something, the wind randomly tumble something over, or an outlet starts to spark with, a water source nearby? It's just so old hat, been there, done that. And I do know that, what am I getting here? I genuinely haven't seen the movies, but my little brother is a huge fan of them. To be completely honest, it's just too much for me. I actually had a friend of mine tell me that she's traumatized by Final Destination. I'm like, traumatized? Really? So thank you for that comment, Angel _. I'm glad that this movie's doing well, because this and Sinners have been the only good movies to make any kind of bank this year. Although Clown in a Cornfield, which is thus far the only good horror movie that I've seen this year, I like Clown in a Cornfield, but it didn't make much money, but it made good amount of money compared to its budget. Anyway, I don't think that there's anything nostalgic for these Final Destination movies. The only aspect about it that's memorable, which I'll be getting to later, is the voice of the franchise. But for me, this is kind of emblematic of a lot of modern horror franchises. There's nothing to gravitate to. Like, back in the day, you would have a Pinhead, you would have a Freddy Krueger, you would have a icon that you could identify with, and a style, you know what I mean? Even though we all got true horror fans, I've always felt, have gotten sick of comedy Freddy. They wanted him to go back to him being scary, the dream demon of nightmares and such. With Final Destination movies like the Jigsaw movies, found footage, Paranormal Activity, like, they're missing that key ingredient. They don't have a Chucky. You know what I mean? They don't have an icon. They don't have a style. They don't have a theme. It's just not a theme, just more tropes. And again, I'm glad this movie's doing well, but for me, what's very much lacking is anything to gravitate to the franchise for. It's not like it would have its own style to it. For instance, the Hannibal show, the original Silence of the Lambs, Final Destination is very much lacking. Angel underscore says the quote unquote clueless girl and the big jock boy has been so overdone. I swear to God, it just sucks so much. I agree. Then that goes back to teenage cliches. I mean, I wish that someone would take and you would think with Scream being as my God, Scream. Do you realize that Scream is going to be 30 years old next year? You would think that someone would say, you know what, why don't we take all the cliche character, the stock stereotypes for teenagers and do something with it. But no, it's just a lot of films, and especially the slasher films, they hinge on stereotypes and they hinge on a formula. Anyway, getting back to Final Destination. So I realize that they're trying, and I'll give them credit for that. They're trying something with the premise where instead of a bunch of teenagers that are on vacation or on a roller coaster or whatever, instead of them having a near-death experience and them being picked off one at a time while they try to find out what the formula, what the ritual is, whatever, they're at least trying something new with a woman who, I don't know, back in the 60s or something, had a premonition, survived, and she went on to be like the matriarch of her family. So now, had she died, none of those people would have existed. Therefore, death's come a-calling. Okay? I get it, but I want to give it credit, but it's like, yeah, but according to the rules of this franchise, why would death wait just to arbitrarily inflate the kill count, the body count? Seems a little suspicious there, don't you think? But yeah, judging from the trailer that opens with the teaser trailer that opens with the guy getting in a very elaborate way a chain hooked to his nostril and he's being like strung up or something instead of just yanking the stupid chain down, whatever. Yeah, this just seems more of the same. You know what I mean? It doesn't look like they're trying to change up the formula. It's more like they're using this premise, the fact that we haven't had a Final Destination film in over a decade. It just feels like they're using this movie as a reason to kickstart what is formulaic, just to get back to it, just to get the wheels going again, just to reboot this franchise. But again, I only own 2 of the movies, parts 2 and 3. I don't feel like there's anything nostalgic for it. I'm going into this film just because it is the comeback of a franchise. I was planning on seeing it 2 weeks ago. I realized that I'm 2 weeks late, but yeah, I'm only watching this for you guys and for the channel, to be honest. I'm not enthusiastic about it. I'm giving it a shot, obviously. Hopefully it does something so that by the time of my Final Destination Bloodlines Aftershock, which I will do immediately upon returning from the theater, hopefully it's got something to it, man. I'm hoping it has more than the cameo, which I mentioned earlier, which will be the last time we ever see Tony Todd. And what I can say about him is that and I said this during my episode where I was eulogizing Tony Todd, most actors, I would imagine, go into Hollywood hoping to be the face of a franchise. Tony Todd got to be that with the Candyman movies, but also he got to enjoy something that not many people can lay claim to. He got to be the voice of a franchise with Final Destination, and we do get to see him unfortunately emaciated as he is, and I'm not mocking him when I say that, we get to see him for one last time. So that'll be a nice, tug at the heartstrings. But I'm hoping once I get back from the theater that I have more to say than that. Again, the creative kills that you would think would be hardwired into slasher movies have more or less been included in the Final Destination films. It's just that so much of it relies on coincidence and, the wind knocking something over, water splattering across the floor just before somebody inevitably gets it. The most that I can hope for is some semblance of characters, even though I know it's not a star-studded cast. Like, I don't know anyone that's in it besides Tony Todd. I want to be optimistic about that. That's the best impression that I could make on my way to the theater. Angel _ again says, are the movies pretty repetitive, like the whole beating the dead horse phrase? I've seen a few clips, but they don't really explain much. Yeah, it's just, as I mentioned at the very beginning, to answer your question, are they very, very repetitive? Oh, yes. Without a doubt. Basically, teenagers will be in whatever scenario on a road trip, on a roller coaster, on a bridge, and someone will have a premonition of a horrendous scene involving multiple deaths seemingly at random from the environment, and they will inadvertently save themselves and their friends, and basically they get picked off one by one throughout the rest of the film for having cheated death. There's your formula. And I mean, my God, and I'm sorry, but after 5 of these, I don't care if it's been a decade. It could be 3 decades for all I care. If you're just going to go back to what was already familiar, again, this movie doesn't have the necessary ingredients for nostalgia in order to pull that off. Because, again, what is it that you're nostalgic for? Just random death scenes that you could probably see on a YouTube clip? Again, I hate to sound so negative walking into this movie that I'm about a half hour from heading into the theater, but I mean, come on, man. If you're just going to go back to the formula, it's kind of an issue of what's the point. And as a point of comparison, we have a new Predator. We had 2 Predator films coming out this year. One will be the animated anthology, which I'm very much looking forward to. I'm going to be doing an anthology of it. a watch party for it next Friday. So we have that in the pipeline, and we also have Predator. Predator? I almost said Predator Backlog. Predator Badlands. So the hope with those films is always that they'll try something different. That's the hope. It might not be good, but the hope is that they'll do something to change up the formula so it's not repetitive, been there, done that. Why, oh why, is it that for the vast majority of horror franchises and horror films, like a slasher genre, like a Final Destination, why is the expectation never on these films to change, do better, do something different, change up the formula? And hey, look, I'm sorry, but like I said, not to be... Actually, you know what? I do mean to be cynical. They're only doing the matriarch survived a near-death experience so very long ago and propagated her bloodline, and now death has come to collect. Okay, but you've only done that to pad out the body count. Angel _, again, says, the whole franchise wouldn't exist if they just stayed at home. Shaking my head. I mean, to be fair, now you're starting to sound like me. I mean, to be fair, you could say that about a lot of horror movies. Like, everybody would just be safe if they just got the hell out of town. You know what I mean? But yeah, it's just, again, they have now completed a dual trilogy of these films, and it's just, I mean, I got sick of it. I was never impressed with the first one. I got sick of it after part 4. I think that was the one that they went 3D. And then they did a 5th one, which was a prequel, which, wow, whoop-de-doo, really? What a surprise. Yeah, part 5 takes place before the entire franchise and leads into part 1. I was just like, do you think that that's clever? Do you think that you just rocked our socks and blew our shoes off? Yeah, you certainly blew something. Yeah, I don't, and that's what I mean. Like, the last 2 movies have just been gimmicks, and I get that there will be people. I mean, obviously there are people that liked what they saw, or at least were wanted to give it a chance. I don't know, relive their childhood or their teenagehood. These movies were big when I was a teenager. I specifically remember the second one. I believe I was, man, I don't remember if the second one came out sophomore year or senior year, but I knew that, like, a lot of the teenagers my age were, like, excited about it. Like, they were excited about it to see the blood and the guts and the death scenes. It's like, should that be what you're going for, though, in your audience? Like, isn't this a horror movie? Like, call me crazy, but it's just, that always strikes me as odd, and that was the reception that I noticed going into the theater when I went to see Saw 3. It's like people were like cheering on the death scenes. I'm like, I don't know if that's the reaction you want, but whatever. But I'll give this a chance. I am about 25 minutes away from the movie beginning. Angel underscore sends us off saying, wow, it's almost as if there's millions of movies with that same format. So unique. Well, I'm glad you mentioned that, Angel One, because I had forgotten to jot down my notes that, hey, does anyone even acknowledge that these movies ripped off the Omen films? Because with those movies, you would at least have the supernatural force of the devil, and the occult going on. But with Paranormal Activity, it's it's death. Oh, okay. And, like, on the one hand, it can be, like, mysterious, this force that you can't fight against. And with Tony Todd being the harbinger of doom, or the prophet of doom, narrating what's going to happen and what the rules are, or what have you, it should work, but it doesn't. And it feels like the handlers are just paying lip service to this whole specter of death. You don't feel that at all. And again, it really irritates me how people don't call out these ripoffs. And the irony isn't lost on me that the 2 movies this year making money in the horror genre are based off of ripoffs. Final Destination with the Omen films, and Sinners being based off or ripped off of From Dusk Till Dawn. Insane. Anyway, this has been my precaution for Final Destination Bloodlines. I do hope that you'll join me back when I come back from the theater to do my Final Destination Bloodlines Aftershock. So that'll be my reaction fresh from the theater. Angel underscore, I hope you'll join me for that. Anyway, I've been Inkarnate, heading out to the theater, reminding you, I ain't just a big deal, I'm the real deal. If you're resigned to your fate, time to subscribe to your fears.
Warn your friends. Warn everyone.